to Performance Talk, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here with Justin Lovett. We are going to talk about a lot of things, so go ahead and get what you need right now early, and then come back and sit down and have a listen. Justin, my friend, how you doing?
Great, man. Appreciate you having me on and looking forward to it.
Yes, indeed. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, Justin is a strength conditioning coach at the professional level with a National Football League team. I'll let him tell you who that is if he wishes. But we're going to get some insight from him on some of the things that he thinks about this profession and where it's going. So we're going to start off, though, with Justin. Why don't you tell us about yourself, how you got in this game, and how you rose to where you think you are now?
Sure. So right now, I'm a strength and conditioning coach for the Los Angeles Rams. This will be our fourth year, and pretty excited about the future here. Love Los Angeles. Love the organization that we're working with. I have a dynamic young leader in Sean McVay. So it really feels like a premium performance opportunity. Reggie Scott is our director of performance, and he's also our head athletic trainer. So we have a good support system. We're very collaborative and integrated. Uh, all the way back to where we started was, I started private in the private sector right out of college. I went to Colorado State, finished up there,
Okay.
played a little bit of baseball and football, not very well at a small school at University of Findlay, and transferred out to Colorado State, and finally figured out that I could do something in exercise sports science because that made sense to me. I played some semi-pro football. I thought I wanted to be a head football coach in high school level. Did some amateur boxing, just trying to chase a little bit of competition. Was a terrible athlete, but still liked to compete.
You probably were not, but okay, we're gonna
Well,
let you say that.
my nose would say different.
I got you.
As far as we're boxing. So I would say, exercise science made sense to me. So once I got outside of graduating Colorado State, I started private. I wanted to be a high school teacher, and the private industry. I work for Billy Glisson. He does Power Core 360 out of Fort Collins, Colorado now. But
Right.
at the time, and I still think he does a lot of club work. He's an exercise physiologist background practitioner, so he really made sense of energy systems and how they apply to athletes. So I was very fortunate to dive in with him and we had youth all the way to high school and sometimes college athletes come through our facility, and that was about a year. Jumped into the high school level and stayed there for 4 years. My wife was a high school teacher as well, and we were physical education teachers, and I was a head strength coach, so I didn't have any assistants, but I did all the teams, and I wasn't coaching any sports. So that was a great, uh, proving ground of organization, applying concepts and
Right.
measuring your yield at a high school level, which is great. And some of those lessons still serve me today more than maybe a college experience would, because the spectrum of development that you see with a pro player as a rookie or as a 10-year vet is so vast that you need to dip into all your experiences from developmental level to collegiate to previous pro experiences or private, shall we say. It's very immersive when you get to the pro level, so you draw on everything. But I do primarily feel gratefulness towards my experience at the high school level for sure for 4 years, and that led to a volunteer stint with the Denver Broncos under Rich Tootin, who's a legendary strength coach.
Right.
He was at Florida, at North Carolina, and a couple Super Bowl championships with Denver. So I just really shouted him and tried to reverse engineer anything he left on the floor as far as programming. I was too afraid to ask him what he was doing or why he would do it.
Right.
Um, I didn't want him to rip my arms off in front of the team and beat me with them. So
There you go.
I just took some knowledge, whatever I could from him, and that turned into an internship with the Broncos. And then I caught on full time with them for 2 years, and then he retired, and that led to jumping into a college opportunity at University of Georgia for 2 years under Mark Richt and Joe Tereshinski, and
Right.
that that brought its own tremendous learning and growth situations for fundamentally different reasons. And I do value my time very much with Joe Tereshinski. And even though he came from a unique background of being a head strength coach late in his career, he had spent 20 years working for Georgia. I think he's a third generation Bulldog. So I got to see the business and the family side of college sports at a high level. He had spent some time in the video department, bounced all around, just do whatever he could for the University of Georgia. And by the time I got to him, he's pretty late in his career, but he set up some things that was very unique in terms of how he let us operate as assistants under him. So under one umbrella, how are you going to help the football team? And we all have our strategies and our go-to methods, and how does it fit together? I learned a lot of lessons from him at Georgia, with some successes and some failures. And so that was my last spot as an assistant. I jumped in at the opportunity, Western Kentucky with Jeff Brom, and I was with him for 3 years at Western Kentucky. Followed him to Purdue University, and stayed with him for another 3 years before got a chance to jump out here with the Rams. So pretty cool experience, and talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but reading a book called The Range from David Epstein, and one of the things I thought was unique along this path that we're talking about is not really unique. According to that book, The Range is everybody thinks they have a unique path, but nobody really does. Every one of us comes from trying, and
It's kind of the path instead of a unique path.
correct. It's whatever path it is. It's not unique. Everybody has similar tries and fails and missteps and setbacks and successful moments that can catapult you or not, but it's not unique. So I felt like I'd usually have a disclaimer when somebody asked me this question about your journey and how did it work, and kind of started late in the pro game just as a volunteer in my 30s and working at night at 24 Hour Fitness. I skipped over a quick 6-7 month stay at El Paso at UTEP. Skipped over that one, but everybody's got their unique journeys, and so that was mine, and I'm becoming more proud of it as we get a little bit further into it than maybe I was early on.
Absolutely, man. Some of us were born to go up the steep side of the mountain, and others get to go up the other side. But regardless, that's our path. I like. I'm gonna go back to the very beginning for you here for a second, and for our audience, for them to realize that you started at the high school level. There's some young professionals about to come out doing their internships now, and they think they're ready right now to go right into the pro level. With the right leadership, some may be. Some may be. Most aren't. And it's not a dig against them, but it's just the nature of the beast. It's like young athletes. Most of them, when they go from high school to college or college to pro, they're not ready to make immediate impacts without some help initially. So,
Yeah.
and we don't know if an 8 to 14-year-old is going to be a superstar yet. we just can't tell that. But I think that I hear a lot of guys going, hitting that high school route and finding that as a springboard. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting when you're private. You think you have your athletes, and you don't want the high school coach who may or may not be as invested in the athletes as you are to ruin them or set them back or hurt them. When you're the high school coach, you want to protect
Right.
your athletes from leaving to the private sector because they don't have the same goals as you, or at least that's what you think, and
Right.
that's probably not accurate most of the time. And then in the high school game, you're also you have pressure with your higher end athletes to prepare them for college and maybe get more exotic with your program as opposed to keep it simple, because in college they might be asked to do this. So we would always say, just save those things for your college coach. And in college, you wish that your high school strength and conditioning coaches were a little bit more aligned in what you were doing, but you don't know their circumstances, you don't know their support systems, their what they're dealing with. They might not have a weight room, or we're working outside doing manual resistance with towels. You don't know, so you have to have respect for anybody that spends time with the high school athlete when you're the college coach. But you also have to deal with the broad range of spectrum that we spoke about earlier of elite programs, elite high school strength and conditioning coaches, and athletes that are benefiting from those experiences. And then you have the kids that did it themselves and move forward to the pros, where you do see a vast. You're not getting everybody from the SEC, and if you are getting everybody from the premier conferences, maybe some of those guys are have peaked already for you physically. They might have squatted 600 pounds, but when they get to you, it's a quarter squat at 225, and that hurts them. So you can't do that anymore.
Right.
So the big broad range of spectrum, I would say to address the original thought was, I do think that high school is a proving ground. It can be a stepping stone, and it also, I guess it wasn't that way for me. I think if it was a stepping stone for me, I would have driven myself crazy. We jumped in full steam. We wanted to be committed to where our feet were planted, as the saying goes, and we had built a house. My wife was a teacher. We had achieved tenure. I was just happy that they were going to be able to fire me as easily as maybe some other jobs along the way. But yeah, we didn't have any ambitions of coaching in college or in the professional level. Our high school was a 10-year-old high school at the time, Grandview High School in Aurora, Colorado. And it was a big school, but they were up and coming just like I was. And during I think 4th summer I was there, I wanted to volunteer at Dove Valley with the Broncos, just to bring some things back to our athletes, just some knowledge, whatever. And once I did that, everything started moving forward, because it was addictive, just being on the edge of wins and losses. Your everything that you do, from improving power metrics, squat numbers, conditioning times or speed development. If that's what you were hunting, that was on display. There was no hiding behind, well, I've done this for 10 years or 3 years at the high school level. Nobody's going to challenge me to change it because we win or we started winning. So I found that to be addictive of everything was transparent, from, are you good enough to be even in the room with us or not? Did you set up the bags 2.5 feet apart, or did you set them 3 feet apart like a moron? Because I was told to set them 2.5 feet apart, but I set them 3. Now guys are tripping. Like those little minute details fascinated me about the pro game. Did you hit the whistle when you're supposed to? Did you hit them with a ready go? Did you hit them with a set go? Is your cadence screwed up? Is your rhythm? Can you command attention? All those things that are taken for granted at the high school level because they're captive to you,
right,
really were amplified at the pro level, because they're not going to look your way unless you have something that can help them. That's their primary objective. So long story short, I would say the high school game is tremendous respect, and I love speaking at high school clinics. And my 2 boys are in high school now, and so I love just watching like a creeper in my truck above the practice field speed sessions. But I would never, and I have never to this day, crossed the line and said, "Hey, coach, you probably need to consider this." I just love watching what they do, how they coach, how they interact with students, and how they move about the. I haven't got a chance to sneak in to see any lifts, but as far as the speed sessions goes, just to watch and learn, and then ask my kids of how things went, and they tell me, and I say, "Well, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Okay, well, let's go do that." I would never cross the line and talk to a high school strength coach about what I think they need to be doing. Even though I've done that before, as far as what I've done, what they're doing, I just
Right.
find so much respect for the high school strength and conditioning coaches that are grinding for the right reasons. You don't take that job unless you're in the business of giving back to your community and improving the quality of the athletic experience for your student athletes and those that are in the game to use it as a stepping stone. It's too difficult. The demands of showing up early, staying late, cleaning the equipment, taping together med balls,
Yeah.
finding things at Home Depot that you can manufacture into some tow systems with tires that you got from the junkyard, whatever. Like that's all lost. There's no way that I would be able to take a high school job and do all those things with the grand ambition of, great, if I do this for a few years, maybe I can go be a GA at a college level, because nobody cares about, college. I had respect for high school coaches, but that doesn't mean everybody did. That doesn't mean that universally those guys are considered. Yeah, you can run your own program with a school that has 2,000 kids, but you don't do it like we do. You don't know what we know. It's like, yeah, they do, but the respect, I would say, in my opinion, isn't unilateral across the board for that profession from the college side. That's so I can, even now, I consider the fact that I jumped out of the high school level to the college level, started off as an assistant at UTEP before coming back to Denver to finish as an intern and as a full time assistant. There was no there was no extra consideration given to me because I had ran a high school program for 4 years when I jumped to UTEP. There was none of that. It was like, man, you got to clean the floors. You got to turn the. Why are you turn the weights around after the end of the workout? Why didn't you cut the music off when I'm trying to stretch guys post lift? You don't understand any of those things. You just been doing your own thing, and nobody's been watching, writing your little programs in the dark, and nobody's been there to audit them. Well, I'm here to audit them as the head strength coach at UTEP, and your programs are now my programs, so you better run my programs right. And so there's a lot of that crossover that it's a steep obstacle for high school coaches to cross over unless they've had some premier athletic experience themselves. They might have been all Americans or all conference players. You can navigate that a little easier than, let's say, me, who's a marginal college athlete who washed out and had to end up playing semi-pro ball. So maybe that's my experience and I'm jaded, but I never saw an easy road for high school coaches to jump. I just don't see that being an easy road. I know it can be done. I think there should be more of a connection and a collaboration. And I think there is now, probably, with all the
It's growing, I
individual
think.
individual strength conditioning programs like Maryland and Notre Dame, putting together high school coaches clinics
Yeah.
and bringing their people, their constituents in the state together to show this is what we do at Maryland, this is what we do at Notre Dame, this is what you can do at your place, or you cannot, whatever, just come and learn. And
Yeah.
I think those opportunities are better, but I still have yet to see a lot of cross changing of lanes, shall we say, from high
Right.
school to college. And
I think you brought up some really good points. One, um, if eh, if you go into the high school situation and you're thinking stepping stone, you're probably going to take a misstep somewhere.
mm-hmm.
And that's what you said. And the reason for that is it's going to be obvious that's what you're doing. First, the athletes are going to know, hey, this dude's just trying to get to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
He's not interested in us. He's just trying to go there. But then when you get to the if you're if you're if you're a good college, I'm sorry, if you're a good high school coach and a college brings you in, then that coach when he's got to look at what you did with the resources that you had. That's how I think that you look at a strength coach, an up and coming strength coach from maybe a small high school or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, or even just a high school level. He's trying to go into the college level, or she.
Yeah.
What resources did they work with? Some of them, like you said, they're using towels out on the sidewalk, you know, every other day for their resistance training and buddy lifts. And when I say buddy lifts, that means you're lifting your buddy,
Hmm.
not he's helping you. So those kind of things. Yeah, that's great information. That's good for our young listeners to hear.
I would
The
say, one other thing too. With we lost, I've lost a premium coach out of a Big Ten school as an assistant to the high school level because of the money. It used to be Texas schools were paying over $100,000. Now schools in Indiana are. So it's a different game. I used to have to make supplemental money running camps,
right,
and
right,
7, 8 year olds, 12, 11, 12, and then we would run our football camps in the afternoon. But I'd make money on that to facilitate equipment purchases
right,
and to add to our speed and agility programming out on the field. I needed new cones and med balls and toe straps, all those things. That's how I would supplement. And then I would take after it'd be a 60-40 split. 60% the program gets, 40% that's my stipend because I'm the one that ran it all.
right,
And that was offered as a way to get me to jump from private to the high school level. And I know that exists all over the place now, but now, even now, the base level of high school strength conditioning coaches, it's being appreciated much more to the point where there is no way I would leave a high school if I had to rewind 20 years. If I was getting paid $100,000 at the high school level and I had a teaching position where it was tenure and I'm not going to get fired unless something egregious happens. That's premium stability. I could see my kids growing up to be in my classes or to be coached by me. I mean, that's the American dream.
yeah,
You're not going to get me to jump out of that situation for a $60,000 job at an FCS school, or even there's Big Ten schools that paying our assistants
right,
$60,000 or less. Currently, you're not getting me to do that, and it's not even a conversation. So I'm not chasing a
yeah.
logo
We,
for
we,
that,
we, we can't even have a cup of coffee for that.
right? And
You
so
know,
I think the
like
game is
I
different.
understand. Yeah,
You're not even calling, even if you do like high school coach. You're like, where is he coming out of? Westlake in Texas? Nah, I'm not even gonna call him because I can't pay him $200,000. I can pay him 60. So,
right.
and I'll get this other guy that's working for free right now.
Let's just
I'll grab him.
while we're on that, let's just be real about the profession. I know back in, okay, I'm about to date myself here, Justin. I started in the mid 80s.
Okay.
So guess what they were paying in the mid 80s for a strength coach?
Yeah. Pretty rough. Not much.
You had to do something else. You had to, or
Mhm.
your family wasn't eating. But with that said, there were a lot of strong minds and really strong people that I came up with the coaches that I had that were forward thinking that just kind of kept me in the game. But today, what do you think about younger athletes taking unpaid internships or taking some of those jobs? Or I'm sorry, younger professionals taking some of those jobs that we call entry level, but there's that's a 2 meal a day job is what I call it. It's not
Mhm.
you're not eating 3 times a day.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that and how it affects the profession or the
It's a love of the game. It's a love of the game job. If you're going to take that job, if you love the game, I remember the first time I got a chance to, I didn't have to, at UTEP, when I first took that job, I couldn't get over the fact that now my whole job was paid and centered around football. And I took a job there for maybe 26,000 from, I was making way more than that at the high school level. But to me, it didn't matter because I used that to get into the system. I thought, yeah, I have some experience, more experience than some of these other guys that just had volunteer gigs, but I'm going to take something just so my whole experience now is based on football. I didn't have to teach a class. I didn't have to go to some meetings. I had to everything was solely focused on football, and I had to do soccer and parts of track when I was there too. But I used that, and guys use that. So if you love the game, and if I just come out of school and let's say I want to get paid, but if I'm in it for the right reasons, I have to get in. And so
Right.
everybody, when I looked at trying to caught the bug at Denver and looked at opportunities to move to the next level. Everybody that I looked at from a resume standpoint had a volunteer internship, a graduate assistant internship, or a paid intern. Every single person that I respected in the game, I got online and checked out their bios for over probably 80 college schools. I was like, well, if I want to be that, like everybody has a volunteer gig. It's a rite of passage. I didn't feel that coming from the high school level to the college level, as weird as this sounds, I didn't pay any dues. Like you hear all the guys that pay the dues of, man, I worked 3 seasons for free and I was living in the dorms and I had to cook breakfast for the guys and I got 1 t-shirt and 1 pair of shoes. That's all I got. And I had to wash it in the sink and I had to run all the 5 a.m. discipline runs. I didn't have those experiences. So I thought, if I'm going to move on or change lanes, then I'm going to have to get one of those volunteer spots. And for me, I thought I had an advantage because not many people in my situation would be willing to do that. And a lot of kids are getting in, a lot of younger strength coaches are getting into the profession because that feeds the rest of us. I look for, if we're trying to hire at Western Kentucky or Purdue, who's somebody that, as archaic as it sounds, is going to show up early, work late, love the game, not ask me for 6 T-shirts, not ask me for tickets for the game. I came up old school under Rich Tootin that if somebody asked him for a shirt that said Denver Broncos on it, you're out.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And so I still have that mindset, and I know it's off-putting at times, but I look for people that are just so absorbed with performance and showing up, and just they look like I was when I first walked into Denver. I was standing on the logo and look around at all the championship banners that they had, and just be appreciative of the chance to enter the facility. And I look for a little bit of that. I don't want somebody that's looking through me to the next opportunity, and along the way I have to service their needs to the point where now it's a consideration of like, I can't get this guy to come in on Saturday because he's already done this, that, and the other in his life. I have to protect him. If I'm looking for somebody to fill a staff position on a Western Kentucky type of smaller school with budgetary considerations, they might still be running restricted earnings. Probably not, since they're winning a lot more games than we were in the past. We had to run restricted earnings positions for $16,000, and we'd hunt these guys that were chasing opportunity. But we did that knowing that it's going to be short lived, because it's not sustainable. You can't do that forever. So I would always take the initiative to be an open book. This is how I got in. This is what I would do if I was you. I know it's going to be maybe a touch and go for you. Just come in. Let's do business. Let me steal from you. You steal from us. We add to each other's superpowers, and then I'll help you do whatever you want. I'll make a call. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm not trying to put a cap on your growth or your ability to move. If I can't keep you, that's an indictment on our situation, or that's an indictment that we don't have enough growth for you, and that's part of it. We don't pretend to be able to keep somebody for 10 years, because you have to grow. You have to get out of our system into somebody else's system, and you have to make money. Bottom line. So, as transparent as we can be along those lines, we would choose to do that, but we know the game is rigged with those guys that are taking those positions. And I knew that if I were going to take a position at, let's say, Georgia, well, if they offered me $50,000, I'm going to take it, but not everybody else will. So that's going to increase the percentages in my favor that I'm a candidate. And it's the cost of doing business. Could we turn it down? Could some of us, maybe our first head job was really low. Some of us are still working with low pay in college for head positions, comparatively speaking, to their conference. Could we say no and say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take one for the team? you can't do that because somebody else is going to step on your neck and take your job that you just passed down for what?
Yeah.
And nobody's going to remember your name.
Yeah.
So if you're off, and this is what I learned too,
No.
if you're off the grid because you made a decision, a self-righteous decision for you, might have been in the best interest of our profession, you're getting passed up and nobody's going to watch you walk out and nobody's going to say, you know what, what's he doing now? You're forgotten. It doesn't matter if you spent 10, 15 years in this game. If you're out for a year, it's like you were never in. That's how I feel about it, and that's what I see play out a lot. So I know the game's rigged, but I would encourage young coaches. We have to take advantage of it, and as older coaches, we have to continue fighting for advocacy when it comes to pay within your own situation. With us, with the Rams, they do take care of us, and they are a organization where they want to make sure that nobody's coming in toxic and saying, man,
Right.
I have to take a job because it's the Rams, even though I'm taking a $50,000 pay cut to do it. They don't want that. And not every program or organization is going to do that. But we, on the other end of the spectrum, doing the hiring and working with our administration at the college level, we have to keep fighting for a higher floor. And that's where the business is right now. I wish there was a different entity that was able to handle those talks for us. I think agents are becoming more of a thing, and then I think those guys do some advocacy for us on our behalf. But
Right.
again, it's hard to pay an agent when you're making $36,000.
Yeah,
You can pay 3% of that. So
Yeah, that's gonna say. Then they want their cut out of it. So
yeah, it's a beautiful, challenging, dynamic situation, and I think it's better, but it's still got gaping chasms of lack of communication or lack of respect for what we do as a profession. Maybe it's become it's of negligence or ignorance, and it's not their fault. I like the visibility that the younger crew is starting to have, but it is what it is, and I think it's getting better. I don't know.
I would agree with you. I think that I would agree with the fact that the profession is getting better. I can tell you, long ago, back in the olden days with me, I had a military career,
Mhm.
but I kept up with, and it was hard to do. I kept up with strength conditioning and my certification and all that. Through all that long distance paperwork getting mailed back and forth because there was no such thing as internet.
Mhm.
You know, well, one of the things that I learned, kind of my internship was in the service because I put the first job interview I had. He said, well, "Where'd you intern?" I said, "Well, I went to the Army." "Okay, let's talk about that. What did you do?" "Well, I did this." Did you run any of the PT sessions?" "Well, yes, I did, and I did it earlier than most guys get to do it. I did it as an E4, E3, E4 before my career took off. But that was from my phys ed background and my strength conditioning study.
Mhm.
So then I got to study with some of the bigger names that were in Germany and France and places where I was stationed, and see how they did business with rugby players and tennis players and things like that. So I guess I'm trying to get to say that early work, however you get it, is important. I think nowadays it's more important to be able to have a documentation of it than it was back when I was coming through. But it's still to actually do it is still important. You have, like you said, you gotta love it.
Mhm.
And if you don't love it, don't take the job for any other reason.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
And if you take the job at 26 or 24,000 in today's world, and you have to work at night, there's no use being negative, complaining, or being toxic about it,
Yeah, it doesn't help.
because that permeates throughout your entire system of athletes, and you can, even if you don't verbalize it, you can see it. And that's a danger that I would say for younger coaches to jump in, and they're going to take something and knowing they can handle it, but it's the love of the game. Those guys shouldn't know that you're doing something at night to make ends meet. If they happen to run into you at working at a gym, and I had to do those things at Denver in the same town that I coached Grandview at. I was working in the same town wearing a name tag at night after spending 4 years at the high school level, and we were pretty successful, and it was humbling. And working with youth athletes from 6 to 8:30. I mean, but it wasn't like they shouldn't have felt like my level of toxicity, because then they wouldn't come to me and I couldn't work with them.
Right.
Complaining about, yeah, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that. I mean, I was fortunate just to be, on the roller coaster, and now everybody has a point in time where they can choose to stay on it or they can jump off, as John Gordon would tell you in some of his latest teachings in his book, The One. But you got to make a choice. And if you're choosing to jump on, then your positivity and your enthusiasm should win over your negativity and toxic attitude. Otherwise, if I feel that, I got to jump.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know if I was ever close to it, but I know that whatever I was doing wasn't sustainable. So could I re-up for another year or continued it? Probably not. I would have had to jump and do something more suitable for family. But at the time when I was in it, I was holding on to the bars of the roller coaster. I was as enthusiastic as I could be, tired, but enthusiastic to be there.
One of the great things about this profession, um, professionals like yourself, is and others, but there are those lessons that come out when we do our podcast from guys like you that say, "Hey, where's your heart, man?" And I'm just keeping it simple. Where's your heart? If you care and you start from right there, then all that positivity that you have about the profession, or that you think you have, that's going to come out if you just care about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't care about, well, I don't care about this job, I'm just going to do this because I'm waiting for this. Well, man, that's kind of going to show, and it's going to come out on the deep end. I know, as much as I like to talk about the profession, and you gave our listeners some great nuggets. Let's talk about the other side of it. Where do you think it needs to go as opposed to where it is or going?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that performance is in a spot where it's siloed in a lot of instances. Strength conditioning does their thing, sports medicine does another thing, nutrition is separated. And we're speaking maybe in the college level mostly. Professionals have figured it out. Nobody cares what the head strength coach of the Los Angeles Rams looks like. They don't care what his name is. They care about Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and the rest of the Rams. They don't care about any of us. So it's easier in the pro game for us to collaborate with what's the best practice that needs to happen for nutrition? What's the best practice that needs to happen for strength and power development, or from return to play on the sports medicine side? The best practice, the best strategy is the one that wins. So for us, we're just, like Mike Tomlin had said in an interview, we're just nameless gray faces that could be replaced at any given time for any given reason. So for us to collaborate, take advantage of each other's strengths, knowledge, and experiences, that's easy for us. In college, it's a little different because there's so much individual branding of this guy's program, or this system, or this is the head coach, and everything runs through the fourth quarter. I'm not taking shots at anybody. I just know that it's different. It's different there, and it's harder to be differential and collaborative at that level, because you're in the strength conditioning field. You might be pulled in a couple different directions. The head football coach might not just want to believe everything that's coming from the sports medicine department, not because of any kind of personal prejudice, but because he didn't hire that position. So he doesn't have the same level of communication as we would if we worked together previously. And the game moves fast. These guys are on planes recruiting. So you're, as a strength professional, you're used as a conduit between nutrition
Right.
and sports medicine to get things done in the correct vantage point that the head coach is going to accept. And so that puts you at odds a lot of times with collaboration, because you know the head coach doesn't want to do it this way, but you have no valid scientific reason to say do it another way, other than the head coach is your boss. He told you he don't like it this way. Fix it. And so I think that puts a lot of strength coaches at odds with other departments. And you hear the dogs and cats analogy. So I think to moving forward, that more teams should employ, and they are, a performance department mandate similar to what we're doing at the Rams that Reggie Scott has really pushed and advocated going forward for us. You see it in the college level where there's a performance director, and he's in charge really of connecting the lines between sports medicine,
Right.
sports nutrition, and strength conditioning. Connecting the lines just means fostering communication. I think Louisville's doing a little bit of that with Dr. Pat Ivey. Some other programs are doing it probably behind the scenes. It's not as visible, but it's not meant to be visible. It's just meant
Right.
the strength coach can do his thing, like roll, dude. But it's really along the lines of if I were to think of what that position would be, I would want to make sure that the communication is there. Who's doing return to play? Is it sports medicine? Is it strength conditioning? Is strength conditioning programming individually for the return to play scenario in sports medicine? Are they doing it on the field? Who's running the field program? How similar or different are the phases of, is this a general preparation scenario for this athlete? Is the rest of the team in a power block? If the head coach wants that athlete to train together, that's going to make it very difficult to put that same athlete in an individualized program within a team setting. So those sort of obstacles can be ironed out with somebody that's sole job is to look for ways to integrate best strategies. The head strength coach might not want the player in with his the lineman that's just coming off an ACL to lift with his starting offensive line, but the head coach thinks it's critical because of the culture.
Right.
I don't feel as a strength coach, maybe theoretically, that if I'm in a certain situation without staff, a high-powered staff, that I can functionally pull that off effectively without sports medicine's help. Sports medicine might not want to come in the weight room because of previous experiences. That's weight room is a strength coach. I'm not in the weight room. Well, I need the sports medicine people in there to help me pull off this individualized program for this return to play, long-term return to play athlete, if I want it to happen at this time. So those type of problems exist, and I think going forward, a performance department would be able to help. A performance director that could go straight to the athletic director about pay scales and competitive salaries and perks. And are strength conditioning considered coaches, staff? What are they? Just let's be clear, because I think it does vary from team to team, and greatly. So
When I started this podcast back in 2016, you're talking about what I was trying to bring to the forefront. I'm at a time in my career at that point where I'm, what is that? So I'm mid 50s. I'm tired of sweating out on the field, but I want to give something back.
mhm.
So how was I going to do that, and how was I going to make all that happen? Well, this podcast popped up a little about, that's just a little about that journey. But we wanted to talk to everybody that touched the athlete or could possibly touch the athlete in performance. We both come from a strength conditioning background. I also have a sports medicine background, and but I think that I'll give you an experience I had. I worked with some small colleges as a consultant, and they didn't have a. These were D2, D3 NAI schools, and they didn't have a strength department at that time. So I go in and I just try to help them. Hey, let's. This is how you probably want to set up your weight room, and this is how you probably want to rotate the teams through time wise. The real that what we call the simple stuff.
Hmm.
You know, and I realized at that point that hey, this is a whole nother world for them, and they don't really understand what I'm saying. So all those things that you're talking about right now became critical, and I don't know when I actually realized that we're not doing necessarily strength stuff all the time here, which is what I expected. We're doing
Right.
we're doing all of performance stuff
Hmm.
because the AD wanted to look at athletic. How many more athletic trainers do I need? Do I need to be involved with nutrition? And I'm looking around trying to find out who he's talking to, but he's looking right at me.
Right.
He's talking to me. So yeah, that is some great information um, about where you think we're going and where we should go. Um, but stop me if I'm wrong. Did I hear in that conversation communication was critical?
Hmm. Key.
Did
Yeah. Like Sean McVay, one of his pillars is obviously communication has to be consistent and ongoing and transparent. And if it isn't consistent, negativity can fill the gap. And so the why of what you're doing, the rationale behind why you would suggest certain strategies can sometimes alleviate the threat of an agenda. And so I could see as a younger strength coach, I would be resistant towards anybody uh, maybe trying to optimize how we interacted with our players from a strength conditioning field or weight room standpoint. I didn't want anybody having any insight on how we programmed and when we timed our acceleration, max velocity, or change of direction days that mixed with captain's practices. I thought the undulation of that should be untouched. And I could defend why we did what we did. However, I do see the need towards either two ways to it being done. Somebody that's brought in that has a little bit of administrative control from the AD or from the head coach to force communication, and that is a nuanced approach. You're going to have to break through with some hard-headed individuals, but if that's the nature of the job, then there should be pathways and not defenses of programs, but just explanations. Maybe there's a 30, 90, 1 year type of growth and continuity that must occur before true change occurs.
right?
The other way it could be done is from the bottom up, where you hire somebody to as a fixer, and that's not ideal at all. But if I know that as a head coach, that as a head football coach, that I'm concerned about guys falling through the cracks. As a head strength coach that has control of a lot of programming aspects, I was also concerned that certain players were falling through the cracks and they're on the field too early. They're not ready. Well, if they get hurt again, the trainer's going to get yelled at. But still, that's not a wash your hands situation. That was a player that we needed, and so I would want to be vocal, or at least have a voice in that situation that says he's not ready, or why is he ready? Just explain to me why he's ready. I wasn't able to do that without coming across as threatening or demanding
Right,
in the position that I was in underneath the head coach. But if we had a performance
right,
director that, if he wasn't from the top down, making sure that we communicated and had full autonomy from the head coach or athletic director, then it could be a bottom up scenario where this guy, your job is to catch players that fall through the cracks and supply us with best strategies. Supply us, audit us. Maybe you audit our successes on speed development, strength and power gains, mobility. You're the one that picks up the movement screens. And are we getting better? Are we getting worse? What does this mean? Interpret the narrative of what you're finding metrically from sports science, and then make sure that you're grabbing kids that fall through the cracks. That's so you're the fixer. You can be the fixer. So that's the bottom up scenario. But I worry about if I always still worry about guys falling through the cracks, and I think whether they're here's the thing too, whether they're a walk on or a starter with an NFL career ahead of them, it doesn't matter. If they fell through the cracks, they fell through the cracks, and that's still a problem for that college athlete and their experience. So I don't think, of course, the likelihood of your premier player falling through cracks is significantly less than, say, a walk-on who's probably been tapped as somebody that's not going to compete, that just needs to be out there and practice and be a body. I still think that there is a responsibility for us to do right by all players, regardless of what their trajectory is in this game, because it's as somebody that's hopefully going to send my kids to a college program, and whether they play or whether they never play, I would want somebody to be an advocate for them to say, look, he's 8 weeks off of this 12-week injury, but they need him to practice because it's a rivalry week and somebody else went down and he's close, so throw him out there. I wouldn't want that decision to be taken lightly by a meathead strength coach that's concerned about wins and losses, or by somebody else that has a different purview. So I think the director, either top or bottom, to catch kids from falling through the cracks is the way we should go. And I think that's the way we're going, but progress is slow.
Yeah, and I think probably six out of 10 professionals that I talk to in all sports at all levels, I think the belief is that we're going that way. But like you said, it's slow, and it's going to be slow because it takes a unique personality, either as the director or as the fixer.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes maybe you want both of those guys if your budget can deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
You and they work together. The fixer kind of works almost directly for the director in that facet of management, as far as making sure that your superstar player who is a stud, and he says he's ready to come back. The doctor says everything was successful. The trainer says he's ready to come back, but you look at him and you say, "Wow, we're not producing half the force we used to
Mm-hmm.
when we're moving, however, laterally or whatever it is. He's not ready. I see a problem here. But everybody else says he's ready.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now those two guys need to come in and mitigate that conversation, because if 4 or 5 people say they're ready and you say he's not, the head coach is probably, and not every head coach, and it depends on relationships, of course, but the head coach is going to probably say, well, I'm going with the consensus. We need him. Everybody else says he's ready, and I don't understand why you say he's not.
Yeah, I think interesting experiences along the way. This reminds me of the differences between college and pro. And I would tell you, I worked for Jeff Brom, and I worked for Mark Richt, and all these coaches were fantastic. Put players first, and it's a tremendous opportunity to work for them. However, sometimes if the strength coach was empowered to be in charge of development, but there was certain obstacles or roadblocks that you had to overcome, it was challenging to make the right decision in the best interest of all parties involved. And sometimes you made the wrong decision. And I certainly made my share of wrong decisions. And the rationale for making the decision was trying to help the kid or trying to help the program. It was nothing other than one of those two. And if you could split the gap and do both with the same decision, then great. And I've always thought, and that weighs heavily on anybody that's in that situation. You fast forward to the Rams. When I got a chance to be with the Rams, the way that they have set up their performance department, I felt like as a seasoned programmer of football development performance, I felt like I had guardrails. I couldn't make a wrong decision with my program at the Rams because I had to go through Tyler Williams to get it. He was our director of sports science. Right now, Zach Witherspoon is. Tyler had went to Minnesota to be the director of football performance. But I had to run concepts and programming through Tyler, not in a way I turned it in for him, but the way that we wrote was transparent. Everybody could see what I was doing. Everybody had access to it. Our director, Reggie Scott, would have to see it, or all of our athletic trainers would have to see it. Our dietitian, Joey Blake at the time, he's since moved on, but he might have an opinion on why. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I've been around. Why would you do this? Why would you do that? Or when you did this last time, what did you get from it? Okay, so why are you doing it again? So we didn't have to stay in our lanes, and everybody had access to it. So I felt like, well, if Reggie says it's okay, when Tyler says it's okay, not to mention all of our assistants that write with us says it's okay, I guess this program just wrote itself. It must be okay. So we're going to, our percentage of success was instantly increased, and our risk of making a wrong decision was decreased, and the stress and the uncertainty that typically associates itself with writing programs for players was removed because of the performance dynamic. I felt like if we have our concepts right, the program writes itself. If we have the right people in place that can implement the program, make audibles and changes on the fly, justify their audibles and changes, and do it in the best interest of the player, not what I think should happen or not to please somebody else, we cannot lose. And because of this setup, I truly enjoy the program writing process and the petty arguments and beefs that we get into as a strength staff, because we're both right. Now it's just what's the best practice. And so that's the difference between college and pro scenarios, and that's just where the game is. And that's where the game is in terms of performance departments over siloistic strength and conditioning coaches, sports medicine, nutritionists not really being forced to collaborate and operate in an integrated fashion compared to the pro level. Like we said, nobody cares who we are. They just want results. So that's easy for us because nobody cares about us. Then let's make it about the 1,000% the player.
And that's where we start with Karen. Let me. I got three more things to bring up as I'm looking at my timer here, and production guys starting to sweat because I'm about to go over my time a little bit.
Here we go.
But I ain't worried about that. First of all, sorry I missed you at the conference.
Oh yeah.
I walked by you like 3 times, man, and I said you were talking to somebody. I said I'm gonna stop and enter. Then somebody came by and I started talking to them. I turned back around, you were gone.
I mean, it's Vegas. The wife was at the pool. I moonwalked out of there pretty quick.
Yeah, you know how those things go anyway. It's everybody, especially for yourself. Everybody's trying to talk to you. Let's just be real. You work with the Rams, so everybody's trying to talk to you. I try not to be the guy that's pushing up in there, stopping you from doing what you're trying to do, or it's that thing from my perspective is, hey, this is a man. He's got things he's doing. If I can get 90 seconds, I will, but I'm not ready to, because I know how I feel about it.
You're good, man. Like, that was my fault too for not walking that floor. That's the one thing I wish I did, was walk that floor a little bit more.
No, that's all right. I just wanted to let you know that I didn't try to forget you, but I got you. So, quick piece of advice for newbies from you.
Don't be afraid to volunteer. Don't be afraid to grind in a way that challenges you to grow outside of your comfort zone, from schematics, how you program, concepts, why you program the way that you do. if you're going to take an opportunity to volunteer or intern for somebody, then choose a system that you respect that produces, and a staff or a person that you respect. And those two, that are not separated. It's one and the same, and those are hard to find. But you can never go wrong if you're choosing to volunteer from those two aspects. Somebody that you respect in the game that has the best intentions in mind, and somebody that produces yield, that their programs are substantive.
Well, no, that's great advice for really anyone, but especially for our younger listeners, our newbies out there. Um, Find somebody you respect and make sure that their program yields something that you can touch and feel and execute. Okay, final question. This is a fun question. You get to pick any athlete in the world, in any sport, in any position, that will excel at any other sport they have to participate in.
Any other sport, so that's not just one sport; it's any other sport.
Right. So pick a athlete in the sport and position that would excel in any other sport somebody threw them in, like a Mister Everything or a Mrs. Everything.
That's because it's every sport, and um, that's an easy. It's Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow.
Hmm.
Okay. So is it every quarterback or is it just Tim Tebow?
No, it's every quarter. It's Tim Tebow would, if I understood the question right, he would be able to play any sport if he was given the time to do it, because he's mentally obsessive about learning the mechanics of what a quarterback play, minor league baseball. I've never seen him play basketball. I've seen him try to pick up boxing to work on his rotational power, and how dedicated he was towards some of that. I see his level of engagement in the performance industry, even along the lines of how he's commentating on college football now. But he was a guy that, if one athlete that could transcend multiple sports, I think it would be him if I had to choose any athlete. Did I answer the question right, or was it what type of prototype of a player? Or
Well, it's been answered both ways, and
okay,
there's no right or wrong answer. It's what do you think, and
okay,
we're just trying to get that out there. Listen, Mr. Lovett, Justin, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate you taking your time this morning. Tell your dog I said thanks for the interruption we had in his time today.
right.
But I appreciate you dropping off some little gold nuggets for everybody and coming on the show with us.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. And the best part about these podcasts, and I've listened to yours and a few others, is what I like to do is you can take some of it that might help, or you can throw away all of it because that's at least what you don't want to do. And
Right.
either way, you've gained something from listening. So hopefully you got a couple things that somebody might like to do, or at least a lot of things that somebody will never do. But either way, we've tried to help. That's what we try to do.
Well, I think we got several nuggets in there, and we will we'll be sure to keep an eye on you and see where you're going. But we'll probably ask you back in the distant future and see what you're doing at that time, and what the experience is at that point.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Performance Talk. I'm here with Justin Lovett, and we've just finished great conversation. So we'll talk to you later.
Yeah, man. Take care now.
We are.